Good afternoon, and welcome to the Board of Health meeting of April 4th, 2022. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording this meeting, please notify the chairman. Pursuant to Governor Baker's June 16th, 2021 signing of an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, including the extension of his March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, section, chapter 30A, section 20, until July 15th, 2022, this meeting of the Chatham Board of Health is being conducted in person and/or remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 508-945-4410. Conference ID is 192-124-847#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Channel 18, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. I'll turn the meeting over to Chairman Beckley.
Thank you, Judy. It shall be the policy of this board to conduct its meetings under the open meetings law so as to encourage public participation whenever time permits and as part of agenda item discussions. We have our quorum here tonight. All 5 regular voting members of the board are in attendance, and we have both alternates here as well. Let's start with tonight's agenda. Item 1 is a request for extension from sewer connection order for Miriam Selig at 35 Duncan Lane. Judy?
I believe Mrs. Selig is here, if you want to come up to the mic over there. She's transferring the property, and that she has a Title V system that failed the inspection because of hydraulic overload. The sewering is completed, and they're just requesting the extension to get themselves hooked up. Due to the limited availability of contractors, the usual problems we've been having, it's going to take more than the 30 days that we typically allow, or our regs say they have to connect within 30 days of transfer. So I don't know if you want to ask Mrs. Selig any questions, but.
You have your green button, your green light on?
Yes.
Very good, thank you. Well, my question was, how are we accommodating the fact that the system that's existing is not working properly, and yet we're giving up to 6 months of additional time?
It's not breaking out. It's just when he probed the stone, it was damp. It's not backing up to the surface of the ground.
It's not coming into the house.
Coming back into the house.
No,
Am I correct?
not at all.
No puddle?
Everything is running just the way it's been running.
But it's a little soggy out back, or?
I don't notice it if I go out to that area, but when he put his
probe?
his probe in, he detected in the leach field that
Okay.
apparently it was damp.
I saw the pump truck there today. The
Really?
Robert Auer truck was in your driveway today.
Oh, that's, okay.
So he must have been pumping your system.
Well, I don't know. I had it pumped by Robert Auer on May 18th last year, 2021. I didn't contact them, so
Well,
somebody.
he was in your driveway. Maybe he was on his lunch break. I don't know, but he was there. Questions from board members?
When you read the report, it says backup of sewage into the facility or system component due to overloaded SAS or cesspool.
Right.
So and they don't give any details.
Well, if you go to the page that describes the leaching field, let's see.
Which page would that be?
On page,
Like a book.
soil absorption system on page 14 of 18. It says the system is in hydraulic failure, ponding over pipe.
It's in hydraulic, ponding over pipe. Which pipe?
I believe he means the pipe. Let's see, it's a trench, I think. So there's a stone trench, a perforated pipe with stone around it. So the water in the trench is bubble, is starting to accumulate. It's not leaching as efficiently as it should. So
So is it on the surface then?
I don't think so. I mean, you're saying no.
No. No, I
He just, when he
was-
probed
yeah.
it with stone, he may say that more.
I was just
clearly.
out there today looking at my daffodils, and I don't see any dampness there
Are
at
they
all.
looking limp at all, or are they looking very good?
They're beginning to
Actually, they're
open. They
twice
look
the normal
very
size.
good. Yes.
Well, it seems to me that's the question, is how do you get from now to where you're connected, while at the same time assuring that your system doesn't adversely impact on the environment?
Right, because if I run the sink or I have a tub, a bathtub full of water, if I lift the lever, it goes right down. It just, nothing. I've been in a house once years ago where it backed up and it
Yeah.
was really right in that tub. It was awful.
Are you there every day? Are you there?
Oh, yeah. We live there year-round, and we have a front-loading washing machine, and there
Okay.
was just my husband and I. Now, he recently died, and it's just myself. So it's not like we're loading with a lot of water. What I really would like to emphasize today is that we have been trying to pursue this since July 2021. We contacted Coastal Engineering. He was on the list of engineers that we got from the town. And we contacted them way back in that July. Then I followed up in November. Then I followed in December. Checked in again on December 2000, on February 4th, 2022, and told them that we were going to put the house on the market. I was going to put the house on the market. And so it's just, the Coastal Engineering keeps on saying when they go to the town, that's something the town is supposed to give them or have ready. Not exactly, Judy would know what Mr. Duncanson is referring to, but some ticket or something. And so it's not like we didn't want to. I mean, we knew that it was going to be very expensive, but we just knew that it was going to be done, and they did a beautiful job, repaved our street, and, they were very good at putting everything in, but it just seems like whatever needs to be done. But I really doubt, well, maybe not doubt, but I wonder whether whatever needs to be done is going to be ready for the new owners who would like to take possession on May 16th. To give them 6 months, I don't know if that's time enough. I really think realistically, for the engineering reports to be done, and Kathy Doyle, my realtor, has been trying to speak to Mr. Speakman at Speakman Engineering too. They're all backed up, and now Orleans people are going to start looking for these engineering studies, and I don't really think that 6 months is sufficient for the new owners to have. I really think, when we had the septic inspection man there, he said, when he's dealt with these instances, that a year is not unusual to be given. And I really think that a year would be more realistic for the town, so someone else doesn't need to come before you, or my deal falls through, which is worse.
Richard?
So this system failed in March. It was inspected in March,
Yeah.
and all winter, there was just one person living in this house. And now the house is going to be sold, and who knows how many people are going to be living in this house. So I don't see how you can approve a system that fails with just one person using the system over the winter to just stay the same for 2 more years. I think it would have to be inspected regularly and pumped regularly at the minimum. And, 2 years just,
I don't think 2 years is operational in this request.
yeah.
No.
Well, I mean, that's the
Something else you-
request, that's the request here.
Yeah.
Well, I recommended 6 months. I mean, the problem is even at this point, even getting a new septic system in, is going to take 3 to 4 months.
Makes no sense.
But I
It's just
would
difficult to-
anticipate it's going to fail as soon as.
They're definitely
as
going to need to keep
People move
pumping.
in and it gets heavily used over the summer.
Are you are you doing the connection? Are you paying for the town to connect, or are the buyers
The buyers.
are representing
Yes,
that
when
they
we
will-
listed the house, we knew that it was going to cost maybe $20,000, that whatever price that we put on for the house, that we'd have to reduce it for $20,000.
So the new,
But these people are similar to when we built the house in 1982. Until 1998, we didn't live there full-time. They live in Hingham. He's still working, and I'm not sure about, the family background, but they aren't people who are immediately planning to live there full-time.
and they're not going to get in until the system is, until the house is connected to the sewer line.
Oh, really?
No.
Is that true?
Well, that's not
No.
what she's asking.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, no,
I think
that's
they're
why I'm
planning on
seeking
moving-
the
They're
extension.
going to take,
She's
yeah.
asking for an extension for 2 years or 6 months or whatever, so they can move in and use the system because they can't connect
I didn't understand.
imminently.
But it's going to be a second home, you're saying?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
a second home.
The summer is the summer.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
don't come,
I think that's asking for trouble.
I think 6 months is reasonable. I mean, because it's going to be an emergency situation, they're going to have to find a contractor who hopefully can get in there, like Speakman, who I already spoke to, and do it as quickly as possible. Either way, like I said, even upgrading the septic system is going to take months, so they have to get plans drawn up. Everyone's super busy. They're just going to have to keep the system pumped and do the best they can. So it's not breaking out to the ground. It's not backing up into the house. They can just restrict their water usage, restrict their laundry usage, and just limp by until,
so are we going to put that in a recommendation that the owners restrict their laundry usage and restrict using the system? I mean,
well,
we're
we
not gonna be
can,
able-
but,
we're
I
not
mean, you
gonna
put
be
it
able to
in
do
the
that.
recommendations, but again,
They'll have to just inspect it like monthly and pump it
as needed.
as needed.
Noble.
It seems this is similar to what we had at last meeting with the leaky septic, remember?
Tank, yep.
So it's, it seems a bit similar. I don't know if they really said that septic system failed, but
Yeah.
it seems,
I mean, I would say Judy's recommendation is a 6-month extension, so I would think we would give an extension on the shorter side, like 6 months, to push as hard as we can and have the owner and the new owners push as hard as they can to try and get this done, and then at the least come back with a progress report that we can get an update that they've really worked hard to get this done. The other question I have goes back to the last meeting, and this is pumping schedule. Does pumping help the situation? Should it be pumped every month? We had a case last week where it
Well, this is
wasn't the
different.
case,
That was a leaking septic tank. This is pumping will help this because it'll keep the
And so
flow
what would a reasonable pumping schedule be for a situation like this?
What would the protocol be here so that
Monthly?
somebody can monitor can we put a pipe in or something to kind of know whether the system is close to, breaking out, or whether it's down, or walkover
And I think
inspection?
monthly pumping would be recommended.
He seemed to feel that it was the leach field, not the septic tank itself
Yeah.
at all.
Right.
How often have you been getting it pumped? You said often, but,
About every 3
Yearly.
years.
Yeah.
You know
Every what?
what? Every 3 years.
okay, so you haven't been on a monthly pumping
Oh,
schedule right now?
no.
Okay,
Oh,
all
no.
right, so we don't
No.
know.
What
with
they
a monthly-
recommend for, 2 people living in a house year-round.
Yeah, but we've had this discussion before. A pumping of a 1,000-gallon tank that's got some sludge in it is going to remove, 800 gallons of effluent, and that'll be 800 gallons of effluent are going to be put back into that tank as soon as the house is used, for routine purposes.
few
So you're
weeks.
not going to gain that much time, only if you had a buildup of solids that were making the holding tank, I mean, the tank capacity to hold that effluent that much less. I'm okay giving this 6-month extension, but I also would like some assurance that somebody is checking that effluent level from time to time, even if it's just a walkover, to assure that we don't have it beginning to pool and run down the hill in the back or something of
Do
that
we sometimes
nature.
make the monthly pump out with inspection monthly? Can it be inspected by the people pumping out? Does it work that way?
Well, they would, yeah, they can,
Inspect the ground and see if it's puddling
right,
and.
right, they can definitely do that.
They know where the spot is, they could
Yeah,
do a
monthly
probe, they
pumping
could do a
will help.
probe, and if the moisture is up to within 6 inches of the surface,
Have we ever done
problem.
more frequently than monthly? Ever
I mean,
done more
that's-
frequently than monthly?
Very
Or leaking
expensive.
septic?
I mean, you're talking $400.
Yeah, I know, I don't think we have, that's the point.
Not that I'm aware of for a residential situation.
Right, so monthly would be the, yeah. So 6-month extension, monthly pumping in inspection.
Ron?
Or
will
just
it- will it-
monthly inspection without the pumping? I'd leave it up to Judy to decide what, or Mr. Duncanson, on what makes sense in this situation where there doesn't seem to be any more symptoms than what the probe showed. Just,
Again, the unknown here is how much more fluid is going to be put into that system, as soon as the house changes ownership, when the summer comes and all. So we're going from one person not using much to who knows, how many people are going to be here on the 4th of July weekend. And if the sewage is running down the back
You
street.
can only hope
and
people
they go back to the Board
realize
of Health
that.
and say, well, you said this is okay.
Yeah.
'Cause then we're into an immediate need to pump regularly. I mean, if the increased occupancy pushes this over the top, and then you're gonna start having a breakout, and it's gonna be flowing down, it's gotta go somewhere. It's gonna be going outside and going down the backyard and finding a little channel to run down.
Typically,
My question is, if we give them the time and she moves out and the new people move in and it fails on them, what do we do then? They move in and.
And they have to
This is-
pump as frequently as necessary to preclude any further discharge.
And that can be quite a bit.
Yeah.
the people that are buying it are, I'm assuming, aware of this issue.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So they know,
It's one
they
of
know what,
the, yeah, it's in the purchase and sales
they
agreement.
know that it needs to be, that there's a failing septic and it needs to be connected ASAP, really.
And they know that they can't take 20-minute showers, they got to take 5-minute showers, and that, I'm serious about
Yeah.
pumping, flushing johns. If you don't have
Yeah.
to necessarily
I think,
flush, you don't.
they're moving, they're not moving, but they have a sewer where they're living, so they aren't familiar
Right.
with them. And so part of the issue our Realtor felt was that if they had been dealing with a bank for their mortgage on the Cape, that they are running, more and more towns and more neighborhoods are running into these situations where, for no fault of the homeowner, the sewer isn't hooked up. I mean, the pipes have been in, it's all ready, and yet, they aren't refusing to put in the sewer system anywhere time, we were ready last July.
Are they
Yeah.
even, they're not going to get a mortgage from a bank if the house they're mortgaging has a failed septic system, are they?
Well, I think that's why they need this extension with the understanding that it's going to be
The
connected.
bank's going to make a decision on whether it wants to loan the money, and the banks are very fastidious in terms of their checklists of,
But the
He's a
money's put in
mortgage-
escrow there
He's a
usually.
mortgage broker, that's part of the positive of this. So he is a little, I haven't met them, but, you know, that he's a little more savvy on how these things work, and probably, although, as I say, I don't really know, that the bank he's dealing with is a bank that, as a mortgage broker and as a resident of Hingham for many years, he's familiar, they're familiar with him, and, you know, feel that he'll do the honest thing of maintaining the property. You know, that it's a beautiful piece of land, and, you know, we've been there since we built it in 1982 and never had a problem. We've been, you know,
Yeah.
good at doing, you know, the front-loading washing machine and, you know, all these things. So we took out our lawn in 98, and we just have ground cover. We don't have a lawn that we have a sprinkler system. So, you know, it's not like I'm using a sprinkler on the grass all the time because
Right.
we don't have a lawn.
That-
So
that
we've
doesn't
done all the
apply.
right things.
Yeah.
Do we know the reason why this is failing? Is it that the leaching field is
Tired?
tired, or is it a pipe that could simply be cleaned out?
It's,
I mean, if it was
Usually it's
if it was $1,000 job to fix a pipe, you could do that and give them 5 years to connect to the source.
it's a stone and trench system.
How old is it? How old is
That's
it?
what I was
82.
just looking up.
How old's the existing
82,
bed?
That's
83,
40,
82,
38
83.
years.
Yeah, so.
93, 100?
Yeah, he said, well, it's 40 years old.
Yeah.
That's that was
Well,
his
that's
answer.
why
Well,
that's why
40
it's
years
slowing
old.
up.
So the
It's-
leaching field is just clogged.
It's just
Clogged.
clogged and it's not performing the way.
So the only way to fix it is to dig out the whole leaching
Yeah, that's
field and
right,
put new,
which makes no
put new
sense.
gravel in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is the same amount of money as installing the sewer.
Yes.
It's the same, 15 to 20,000. And, you know, as people have said, that's about what it will cost us when they put in the sewer also. Connect it.
Bob, I've got a question for you. It's clear to me that we're going to approve this for 6 months, and we're going to put some kind of reasonable conditions that will help assure the board that we don't have an active failure situation ongoing. Do you think it makes more sense to have a contractor come in and pump and inspect once monthly, or simply have somebody who's educated and trained come and walk over the property and do some probing to assure that it's not getting too spongy and not looking like it's about to break out?
I'm not sure that you're going to find, I'm not sure that that's going to help you a lot.
Okay,
I'm also not convinced that pumping is going to help you a lot.
right.
When we've had these kind of situations before, some of the septic companies do have the ability to basically go in and they can vacuum out the trenches, if you will. So instead of everything going out, they can actually pull all the liquid and all back. And sometimes that buys you a period of time with a trench system like that, where it then starts kind of functioning again. So as the conversation was going on, I was thinking, well, maybe what we need to do is or what the owner or the new prospective owner needs to do, is, you know, potentially bring somebody in like a Robert Auer or J.W. Dubus and have them evaluate the leach, see if they can find, you know, or they can offer a suggestion for doing something that would gain
Interim.
6 months or, you know, a year's worth of use out of the system. I agree, it is going to be questionable in terms of what that use is. Obviously, if it's just an older couple, you know, versus a family of 5 or 6 kids, that's going to make a difference. But I know in the case, and Judy's probably familiar with some of these too, there have been cases where they've been able to go in and basically rejuvenate the leach field for a period of time. You know, it won't last for years, but you can get some period of use out of it, knowing that there is a replacement. Either they're going to replace the leach field, or in this case, they're going to connect to sewer. I'm familiar with this property. I have given approval for them to go ahead and get connected to the sewer as quickly as possible, because I knew that they were in the process of selling the property. The big problem, as you know, because it's on your agenda for today, is all the engineers and contractors are just so straight out right now. So that would be kind of my suggestion, is maybe we have or Dubus or somebody come in, take a look at it, see if there's a way that, they can kind of rejuvenate that field to buy some period of time out of it. The other thing that the board has done, I don't think it was this board necessarily, but prior boards, they have indicated that, a new homeowner can't live in the facility until it's connected. That, all right, if, you're going to be connected in 3 months, you can't live in the house for that period of time until the connection's made. I don't know if you want to go to that kind of draconian thing. I would suggest at this point, probably not ready to go to that step yet. I think if you give them, the 6 months, because I agree with kind of keeping the feet to the fire of the engineers. Like any engineer, they may say, I can't get to it for 6 months, but then if you say, oh my God, I have this urgent need,
Yep.
they can kind of move you to the head of the line, kind of thing. So I think we need to keep pressure on to make it happen.
Bob, I remember years ago reading about experiments that were done with septic systems using peroxide as an oxidation treatment to
Yep.
break up. And has that ever been done around here?
It was done in some locations, occasionally. The biggest problem with peroxide, though, is then you kill the entire biomat.
Yep.
So the biomat that you're relying on to further break down the waste,
Is
because remember, some of the breakdown happens in the septic tank, and then some of it happens
Yep.
in that biomat that builds up around the leach field. And if you go with the peroxide, you've just killed all the biomat in the leach field.
right.
So that's kind of fallen out of favor,
Okay.
if you will. It's effective at doing that kind of thing, but there are some other techniques they have, available now that can kind of get you to the same place, but don't have the
Without the
long-term
kill.
implications. So,
What's the pleasure?
Given this recurring situation, is there any way that the town can influence engineers and contractors to place things that are emergency issues at the top of their list, or have some reserved spots, to get good favor with the town, or to get, because it just seems that this is just going to happen over and over and over again, and every time a septic system fails, this is what we hear. It's 18 months before we can get a contractor, and the contractors are putting in plenty of connections in houses that have perfectly good septic systems.
yeah, short answer to your question is no. I mean, short of the town having an engineer on retainer, if you will,
Right.
to utilize in kind of emergency situations, that would be the only mechanism, and I'm not sure that, if an engineer is booked solid, and even if you have him on retainer, what does that mean? That, he keeps 2 hours every Friday available in case you might want to use them, and that's, theoretically, you could do something like that. I'm not, trying to get something like that through the town would take a while, and so wouldn't be available in a case like this. Who is your engineer?
With moorings.
I haven't been able to hire anybody yet.
You haven't even gotten anybody hired yet? Okay.
I
last-
thought that my husband had given a deposit to Coastal Engineering last June.
Okay.
And so my realtor said, oh, good, at least we've got, a step in there. But as I say, he died actually in November. So last week, I went to his checkbook to see when he wrote the check. I could not
Find anything.
find it. So I
Okay.
don't think that he did that. I could have sworn he told me that he had sent a check and they were quick to cash the check, but they aren't quick to come over here and do what they're supposed to do. But I honestly
In their
don't
driveway.
really know. I would have to ask Coastal, because he was pretty good at recording all his checks. So I really do not have an engineering.
Okay.
And Kathy Doyle, the Realtor, has been talking to Speakman. And, but as far as my having anybody under contract, no. some of them just say, I'm sorry, I'm not taking any new customers, and, you know, they close the door. So to me, it's kind of the town. If it's ready to go, you know, I would
Well-
do it next week.
You see, you want to make a point? Because I wanted to say something.
Well, I was just going to ask the clarification, was there an hour truck pumping, or have you contacted them to pump?
I wasn't home. I have been in and out of the house all day.
Is Hour somebody you've talked to about pumping it
Well, I have had
recently?
them pump it before, unless my Realtor called Hour.
Right.
When's the last time Hour pumped it that you know?
I looked it up, May 18th, 2021. So it's almost exactly a year.
A year ago.
But usually, you know,
Okay,
they don't
that's-
come unless I call them, so.
My feeling is we grant the 6 months, but we say it's on a performance basis, and that system needs to be monitored. And if during this upcoming period of time, it starts actively failing, then I would say, at that point, we would have the option of either telling the new occupant that they can no longer occupant the premises until the connection is made, or that they have to start pumping as frequently as necessary to prevent any further surface discharge. That could be, you know, every 2 weeks. Could be a lot of money.
What Bob mentioned about the sucking it back out, is that really involved? Will it be hard for her to get someone to come out and do that, do you think?
No, I think, you know, I know our company has done systems like that in the past. I think Dubus
Yeah, I
may have
mean,
done it.
Robert Hour could probably do it, maybe Wind River. There's
Yeah.
a few that might be able to do it. I'm just not sure how much it will help in this
Yeah.
situation because it's a stone trench. It's one thing if you have a pit, they can go in and pump that out, and gives it a little time to dry out. I'm not sure, it depends on how badly this is failing. If there's liquid in the pipe or not, whether they can pull that out.
I'm just thinking if it fails, you know, when the new people move in and it fails, it's going to be a problem.
In this
Well,
case,
yeah.
who would do the inspection for the owner? I mean, who, is it, it's the same contractors that she's been trying to talk to? I imagine.
Do the
So
inspection? Yeah, I
if we
mean,
say she needs, have it inspected monthly, it has to be done by one of these contractors.
Yeah, it would be up to the owner to
Fine,
get the
okay.
people to
Yeah.
do it.
When we had the company that came and did the inspection was not Robert Hour. I thought, well, you know, I'll call Robert Hour. And they said, no, there's a special one that's Septic Inspection Company.
Yep.
And so it was different than
wonder
just
what they
having
would-
it pumped.
I wonder what they would charge to have a field inspector go out once a month, walk over the property, do the probe, make sure with that site inspection, there's no evidence of active failure.
Yeah.
And whether that is something that the owner could hire somebody to do, just as an eye, somebody to keep an eye on it, and then keep your fingers
It was a couple of
crossed.
$100s when he came. It was not inexpensive when
It
he
was.
came. The septic, I could look up the check when I
Yeah, it was
paid him.
Darrell Stone did the inspection.
Yeah.
He's a Title V certified
So
Title
they're
V.
not going to come out for a quick,
Yeah.
there's no
Oh, he
like,
came-
I mean, he
spent-
might if
he
somebody
came
hired him
there-
to
He
do
was
it.
there 45 minutes.
He was.
I was really surprised how long
Yeah.
he was there, what he
Well, I'm
was
not sure.
doing. I don't know. I mean, I did see him sticking things, but I'm sure he did other things besides that. But, yeah, so,
But if he knows where the problem was, and he could just go to that spot,
and just,
he should be able to do it for less, you know, you would think he might be able to make an accommodation.
We can't
we can't intervene on that.
tell
Right.
them who they should hire,
Right.
you know.
So what's the pleasure of the board? Somebody want to give suggest a motion?
Well, I guess so, but we've decided it would be a 6-month extension with monthly inspections. And that would determine whether it needs to be pumped or not. And then how do we check up before that? Or I guess Judy could check up with a timely report? And is that what we're aiming at for right now?
I think that's reasonable. I think the people that are going to live there, they don't want to have a puddle of sewage in their backyard if they're
So it would
purchasing a
be
second home.
monthly
so
inspection and then pumping as needed, or monthly inspection and pumping?
I think
needed,
as needed is,
I wouldn't mandate the pumping
Okay.
if it's not
All
necessary.
right, so I'll put forward a motion that we grant the variance for a 6-month extension with monthly inspections and then pumping as needed, and they would make those reports back to Judy to keep track of it.
Right. Can I get can I have a second? Ed, any further discussion by board members? Comments? Anybody from the public wish to comment? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion as made and seconded, say aye. Aye. Any against? Okay, the motion carries.
Thank you.
And hopefully, all you need to ask for is a short, you don't need a comprehensive system inspection. You just want them to just do a quick check of that area and make sure that doesn't seem to be actively failing or getting worse.
Well, hopefully it isn't me,
Okay,
it's them.
okay.
Yeah, it's the buyers. How long does it take to get this in writing so that I can present this? Because they're signing a P&S hopefully this week.
I can get you something in writing
Excellent.
tomorrow or the next day.
Fine, and you'll email it to me like you did
Sure,
before?
yep.
Excellent. Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Nothing
you.
has been done to date
No.
on this, so if they put a probe in now, it's going to be failed. It's going to be wet. So what
I'm
we're
worried about
looking
it
for
progressing
is if
beyond
it's
that.
approaching the surface.
Yeah, I'm saying if it's clearly getting on it's either failing or very close to failing on the
If he
surface.
just sends a report that the system has failed, it's not going to help. We're going to have a more detailed report that
Report on the
tells
condition, including
if the
ground
condition
cover and
is
all that.
deteriorating further.
Right.
Yep.
So the hopefully new owners would be aware of this and would have it inspected once a month and then send the report to
Judy.
the Board of Health?
Yes.
And I would encourage them to hire the same firm that did your last inspection, so they're familiar with, with what's going on.
Oh,
I
okay.
can't require it, but I would encourage you to, because that man or woman will know, the prior report. You agree with
yeah.
that, Judy? It makes sense, or didn't think it doesn't matter?
Sure, or they
Well.
could just have a pumper come over and take a look.
Yeah, could Our or Dubus or somebody else
Sure,
do it too?
they have people that can do
These
this.
fellows had come from like Norwell, I mean, or someplace off Cape. He
Yeah.
came down, I can't remember the name, the company, this septic inspection.
Then you're
But
paying
it
for travel
wasn't,
and,
like being on Great Western Road or anything. I mean, it was,
Yeah.
a trip, and apparently this is what they do. But, he was going back and forth, and I just, hopefully, that this will tide them over until they can connect
right?
to the sewer.
Hopefully, everything will work out fine, and they'll be able to contact an engineer.
It's just, I think the thing that bothers me the most is that we have really wanted to hook into the sewer.
I know.
And, the pipes are in. If I had talked to
Yeah.
Mr. Duncan, he said, that they're there.
Yep.
And, if you open that hydrant, water will come out. So the hydrant is there, the stub is there for the water, and we're on a well.
Okay.
So we have no electricity, we have no water, so,
Oh, boy.
we are eager to get this done, but, I had stakes in the ground a whole winter ago on where different plants were, so when they dug up the whole front yard, that I could, dig out my perennials before they began digging, but
Thank you.
I think they will be cooperative. Thank you. Judy.
Thank you very much. All right, let's go to item number 2 on the agenda, which is a continuation show cause hearing for an expired O&M contract for John and Chandra Riley at 41 Swift Lane.
I think you have a copy of the contract all signed and executed, so we're in good shape with that one. I don't think there's anyone here to represent.
But everything looks in order?
Yes, everything's fine.
That's this date 3/22?
Yes.
March 8th, yep, 2022. It's signed by all parties and very reputable engineers that are taking over the contract, so I feel confident that they're in good shape.
Board of Health okay with this, as is? I'm seeing nods. We don't have to approve this, do we?
Nope,
Okay, just for our FYI, for our information, everything's been taken
it
care
was
of.
continued till today, so we made sure we have the signed contract, so it's all set.
It's all set. All right, let's move the agenda. Let's go to item number 3, a discussion and a review of revision to the sewer connection regulation. Dr. Duncanson.
Okay, so did you guys finish the show cause hearing for Swift Lane?
We did.
Sorry.
Yeah, just did.
Okay, do they need to vote, though? Because it was a show cause hearing, so they continued the hearing, but they should close the hearing.
So they accepted, but they have to vote.
Yeah,
You want to vote?
yeah, you should vote because it was a hearing that you continued, so you want to close it.
Okay, can I get a motion to accept that the documentation has been provided and is in good order?
I will accept it, make a motion to accept it.
Can we get a second?
Second, Ed Sheeran.
All in favor of the motion as made and seconded, say aye. Aye. Okay, motion carries. All right, Dr. Duncanson.
Okay, so this is exactly the conversation that we were having with the first item on your agenda. The fact that all the engineers and contractors are so stretched out that, as you've seen tonight and then previously, people can't get things done within some of the timeframes that, the board and previous has set. One of those is the mandatory sewer connection regulation, which I included a copy of in your packet, and also sent it around by email, 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. And so what I'm proposing is right now, the mandatory sewer connection regulation requires that the connection be completed within a year of an order being issued by the Board of Health, and I'm suggesting that that be extended out to 2 years. We've been talking about this probably for the last 2 years at least, even before COVID, that, everybody was getting busy, and as noted earlier, more and more towns are issuing connection orders because they finally, for want of a better term, caught up to Chatham. For many years, well, for roughly the first 10 years of implementation of our sewer plant, we were the only town on the Cape that were issuing connection orders. Now other towns are catching up. Harwich, Barnstable is now starting to do quite a few. Falmouth has done quite a few in the last couple of years. So there's basically more competition for engineers and installers on the Cape. And so unfortunately, I don't think the situation's going to get any better going forward. So Harwich, when they just did because they didn't even have a sewer regulations up until they entered into the intermunicipal agreement with Chatham, which required them to have regulations as good as or better than ours because they're tied into our system for the East Harwich area. When they passed a sewer connection regulation, they gave people 2 years right off the bat, recognizing that everybody's busy. So my recommendation to you is that we change our regulation to go to 2 years. So that is what's in section number 2, is the change from 1 year to 2 years. If there's a property transfer, during that period, then people have what used to be 30 days to make the connection. They now have 180 days or 2 years, whichever is later, depending on when they got the order and the connection, where they were in the process. And then there's just a couple of little, what I thought were cleanups, taking out the word provision and putting the word application in, because I think it makes more sense grammatically. And then for innovative alternative systems, they still have 10 years of use from the time of the IA installation. However, if the property is transferred, we're now giving them 180 days to make the sewer connection.
Okay, so
So
there's
the
no,
original owner who paid for the IA gets to use it for 10 years, but if they decide to sell the property, the new owner doesn't.
get that benefit.
It's not like a warranty that transfers from owner to owner. The
Right.
new owner has to connect within 6 months.
Okay.
And then on item F on page 2, there's just a clarification there that talks about the abandonment, because part of connecting to the sewer, you have to abandon the septic system, obviously. And previously it said in a manner approved by the Board of Health. I just put the regulation, the Title V regulation in, because if you actually look at the form that we have online, it actually references the Title V section. So just to make it clearer that, anyway, just for clarity. So those are my recommendations. This would require, because it's a change to your regulation, it would require a public hearing, which we have to give 2 weeks' notice for, correct, Diane? So my recommendation is you would go ahead and schedule the public hearing for basically 2 weeks from today. Maybe, when's your next meeting? You have a meeting in,
One next week and then May 2nd.
okay, maybe the May 2nd one, just to give us time to get it in the newspaper, because we have to get it in the newspaper, that you're having the hearing. So obviously, we couldn't do that in time to get it for next week's meeting, but if we got it in the paper, you could hold the hearing on May 2nd. I don't think there's going to be anybody coming out of the woodwork for this topic, but you never know.
That's the same day of our next meeting then?
Yeah.
After
Yeah.
this one, the next meeting after that?
Yeah,
Okay.
so we would just schedule the public hearing as an agenda item on
Gotcha.
your May
All
2nd
right.
meeting. You could have that, and you could vote it. Once you open the public hearing, close the public hearing, then you could vote. If you don't get any, there's no reason to have any further discussion. You could go ahead and close and vote that night
Okay.
to have these regulations go into effect. We would then get them published in the paper, because one of the reasons why I'm doing this is we do have 2 recently completed sewer contracts. One is the 1D1, which involves Duncan Lane. And then we also have the 1C 3 and 4 contract that we've also finished. That one involves about 20 roads. And between those 2 contractors, about 250, 300 properties involved. So rather than, we haven't sent out, I haven't come to you yet to have you authorize connection orders for those properties, because I didn't want to do it
On
when we
time.
were only giving people a year and then get a flood of people coming in saying we need time extensions. So we've held off on that to get this reg change in place, then go ahead and have you issue the connection orders and start fresh with the 2-year timeline, which I think will be a lot easier on the property owners, and I think also on you, because you won't be getting all these requests for time extensions because we know that engineers are at least 6 to 8 months out, because I have town projects that I've tried to get engineers to do, and I've talked to them, and they say, we can't get to anything for 6 to 8 months, and the same with the contractors, they're 6 to 8 months out. So-
Question, we're in a free enterprise. Why doesn't one or more of these firms bring another engineer on staff? And
They just can't get them.
They
Same
can't-
reason why retail stores and restaurants can't find help.
They can't,
They just can't
get
find
'em.
help.
Really?
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Whether it's a dishwasher or a PE, they can't get people. So,
Wow.
you know, everybody's looking, believe me.
Bob, I got a question. Now, these people that have got their letter saying they have to connect,
Yep.
now, does this give them more time also?
No, they would, their letter, if they had already gotten a letter and it says a year, they would need to come to you officially for
Extension.
an extension. This would only be for new people going forward.
Okay, and also, how are we doing on people connecting that we've sent out letters to?
Things are not bad. You know, we're still working with the software company to streamline the letter process. It hasn't gone as smoothly as I think either Judy or I would like. But we have had a fair number of people coming in recently. We have a lot of people in the queue, if you will, that have started the process, but their engineers are so far out, or they've even had a permit issued, but they can't get the contractor, to do it. So, there's just this backlog everywhere right now.
It's too bad that we don't know the people that just said, I'm not going to do it. And I'm sure there's some of them out there.
There are some of those that have indicated, they haven't done anything.
Yeah.
We can narrow that list down to just those, if you will.
I understand the people that are trying to do something, but the people
Yeah.
who have just said, I'm not going to do it. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that you probably know who they are.
There's actually very few, I think, of those people that, just absolutely refuse to do it.
Because I know we've been waiting to, get that list caught up. Okay.
Yeah, believe me, I'd like to be able to get all the Nastergram letters out, and then, if we get some that just haven't done anything at all, that's when we start finding them or take them to court.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any municipalities that do sewer connections to the home in Massachusetts? I mean, it seems that continuing to put more sewers in and using these skilled contractors to put sewers in and getting farther and farther and farther behind, it would be a better idea for them to do some connections as they're going along.
Yeah, there have been towns over the years that have done the sewer connections right up to the house. Marion was one. We talked to a number of them when we were doing our comprehensive wastewater plan to see how other towns did it. The difficulty, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, the difficulty is you have to get an easement then on every property for the town or the town's contractor to come in and do it. Marion was one town that did it that way. When I talked to them and our engineers talked to them, they said, don't do it. It's just a nightmare trying to go through the whole easement process and everything else. So it can be done, but most towns now are not doing it. Most towns do what we do. You bring the sewer line up to the property line, and then from the property line to the house is the owner's responsibility. That way you don't have to worry about liability, you don't have to worry about getting easements on private property. So, there's pros and cons to both. But we chose to go the route of, we're doing it up to the property line, then the private property owners are responsible from there on.
So the town water lines are also done by private
Yep.
contractors into the house.
Yep.
So, should we have a moratorium and reduce the number of sewers constructed to half of what we're doing, and save some money, postpone it, if we can't connect? It seems silly to have all these sewers and all these roads dug up and just, get farther and farther and farther behind. We'll be 1,000 behind.
It'd be more expensive to do it 5 years from
Well-
now than now.
I can see it being like the senior center. Every time they put it off, the price goes up.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sure
mean,
that'll
that's
happen.
obviously one of the issues. Right now, we're not that far behind. We're not, we don't have 100% connected. But when you look at, and I didn't bring it with me, my latest update for the town manager's budget, when you look at the number of connections that are done, complete, the number of people that are at various stages in the queue, so they've started their engineering, or their engineering has been done and it's under review by the town, or it's been done and a permit issued and they're just waiting for the contractor to actually physically do the installation, we're up between 85 and 90%. So
That's not bad.
yeah, if you look just at connections that are fully complete, it's about 65 or so percent. But when you include the other ones that are in the process, it bumps it up a lot higher. I was surprised when I actually ran the full numbers, and I said, oh, okay, we're not that far. And honestly, we did have a bit of a moratorium, if you will, because 1D1 and 1C3 and 4 took long because of COVID. We haven't issued any new sewer contracts recently. We just bid one, we just issued one that's going to do the lower section of Morton Road and Meeting House Road. But, keep in mind that from the time we authorize them to proceed till the time they're finished, that's 18 months to 2 years.
Yeah.
Before, that's just the sewer construction. So you've kind of got this built-in moratorium, if you will, because right now we're not planning any more sewer contracts probably till this summer or the fall, in which case, they probably wouldn't be signed up and ready to go until next year, and then 18 months to 2 years before we come to you and say, okay, everything's done. You guys now need to issue your orders to connect. So there's always this kind of built-in lag in the process anyway. And that's one of the reasons why we only do sewer contracts every 2 years as opposed to every year, just because we didn't want to get so far behind the eight ball. Now, COVID-19 definitely got us a little bit behind the eight ball with some contracts, and we've actually put a couple off. We actually took some that we had DEP funding for last year and withdrew that funding and reapplied. So we basically gave ourselves another year to kind of catch things up and get everything back on track.
And so then, Bob, if a property that's been given notice to hook up, if it transfers, it must get inspected, and if it fails, it comes before the board, just like before, like this?
Yeah, this doesn't
that's all the
change,
same.
this doesn't change any of the inspection regulations upon transfer, no. This is strictly the sewer connection regulation.
What do you need from us tonight to move this forward?
I basically need from you guys a motion to bring this forward for a public hearing on what was the date? May 2nd? So, yeah. So you would just need to schedule a public hearing for this proposed revision on May 2nd.
Can I get a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to that effect.
In a
To bring
second?
this
Second.
Second from Ed.
forward by, what was the date?
May 2nd?
May 2nd.
From May 2nd.
Everybody clear what we're voting on? Just moving this forward. Anybody from the public want to comment? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Okay, we will go ahead and get this in the newspaper with the proper advertisement of the public hearing, and then that'll be an agenda item on your next meeting.
All right. Item number 4, a discussion and a review regarding the definition of a bedroom.
So you have in your packet 2 regulations that both have the definition of a bedroom in them. So in order for us to formalize it, I changed it. I came up with a draft definition, kind of based on what we talked about at our last meeting, and it's the same in both regulations. I also, in the subsurface sewage disposal reg, made some other changes, most notably in the floodplain, construction in a floodplain. I kind of brought that up to our current floodplain definitions and mapping standards, because it was kind of outdated the way it was worded, which is something I've been wanting to do for several years, so this was a good time to do that, since we were going to be making a change in the reg with the bedroom definition. So I think we should talk about the bedroom definition. And I can read, do you want me to read to you what or we can, so I I basically added, I kept in the section and 3.3 in the regulation, which we had in there already, which basically is what comes right out of Title V in the Housing Code, which is the definition of a bedroom, greater than 70 square feet, ceiling height of no less than 7 feet 3 inches, or 7 feet for an existing house, percentage of floor covering for that ceiling height, electrical service and ventilation, natural, and then meeting the state sanitary code. Those are all right out of Title V. Then I added garages and lofts with one wall open to the lower level are not considered a bedroom. And then for the purpose of this regulation, a room with a 6-foot minimum cased opening for new construction, or I put 4 foot, these are all for discussion, 4 foot for existing dwellings that open directly into another habitable room or a hallway that leads to a habitable room is not considered isolated. Cased openings must not be fitted with a door. Rooms over freestanding garages that have heat and a bathroom that provide privacy are considered bedrooms. Rooms over attached garages with direct access to the house that provide privacy are considered bedrooms. Sun porch room are not considered a bedroom, and the sun porch room is a room designed to have a minimum of 40% glazed area, window area of the total combined exterior wall and ceiling areas of the room. In calculating the total glazed area, only the translucent or transparent window area should be considered. Lofts or bonus rooms with walls open to below shall not be considered bedrooms. I think I might have,
Or open stairways.
or open stairways shall not be, yeah, I think, is that repetitive from before? Lofts with, I did have that previously. Rooms that do not meet the strict definition of a bedroom may be reviewed by the Board of Health on a case-by-case basis, just giving us the option to discuss it. So, obviously, this is a draft for our discussion. I did not put in the part about taking the total number of rooms
Divide by half.
divided by 2. I think that will confuse the situation. I mean, it can work for our benefit in some cases or against us in others, but I think it's kind of confusing, and we might get some pushback from builders on that one as well, depending on the situation. So that's, I'm, welcome to any comments. And
Judy, your first paragraph, starting for the purposes, when I got to the end of the first sentence, I saw is not considered isolated. I know what you mean by that. I wonder whether a layperson that reads this will understand the use of the word isolated in that definition. I mean, you're really saying it's not a bedroom.
right. And it doesn't really refer to anything previously where I used that term, does it?
Right. So I'm wondering whether we ought to wordsmith that a little bit to
Right.
say, leads to a habitable room is not considered isolated, or, in parentheses, or a bedroom, or otherwise a bedroom, or just
It's not considered.
use the word isolated.
Or
What you may want to do, because in the original definition of bedroom, it talks about privacy.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
So I would say maybe something like habitable room or a hallway that leads to a habitable room does not provide the necessary privacy or something like that,
Right,
Exactly.
you know?
Because that
way
ties it
it's-
back.
You're using the
Yep.
same term
Okay.
throughout.
exactly. Okay. Do you, well,
Where's the word privacy? Where is that in?
Right at the very top where it says bedroom in 1.1.
Oh, providing
It
privacy.
says a room providing
Right, right.
privacy.
Okay, yeah.
That's the term that
Right,
they use
right.
consistently in Title V.
Right, so that sentence could just say is not considered as providing privacy. I have a question, though. What's the difference, what is new construction and what is existing dwelling? So if you have an existing dwelling and you go in and you do a renovation, and add a bathroom and add a study in an existing dwelling, and it has, and one of the rooms has a 4-foot cased opening, is that an existing dwelling, or is that new construction? I mean, I think if you, this is,
So
a
it
lot of
could
what
be,
we're seeing is existing dwellings
right.
that they're renovating, and then they throw in an extra bedroom with a 4-foot cased opening.
So, yeah, I mean,
And
that,
why would it be different? I mean, if they're doing construction
Right.
on an existing
Why
dwelling,
not make it 6?
then they ought to make it 6 feet.
sometimes I'll be
possible.
counting bedrooms for an existing dwelling for a new septic system where there's no construction, and it may have like a 4-foot or a 5-foot cased opening, and I won't count it as a bedroom. Sometimes people will come, to me for a building permit, and they want to take away a bedroom and move a bedroom to another location, and they can't quite get the 6 feet because of structural problems, and I may allow them to do the 4 feet. Those are things that may not always come to the board, because there's no variances needed or new bedrooms. Obviously, if you want to keep it at a strict 6 foot on those types of cases, but a standard door is 3 feet, I
3.5
think.
feet.
3.5 feet.
30, yeah.
I mean, I had a case recently where they were trying to sell a house, and they had a room that they were counting as a bedroom, and we caught it because the septic system wasn't big enough for the number of bedrooms they were saying, and we looked back in the building plan, and the room was supposed to be a cased opening, and they had put a 4-foot cased opening or something around there. It was a little more than 3.5, and they had put a door on it. And I'm like, okay, you have to, or they had put a regular sized door. I'm like, you have to open it out to a cased opening, but they didn't have enough room to get the 5 feet the way they had constructed. This was a house that was built probably 15 or 20 years ago. So I had to let them go with the 4 feet. There were floor vents involved, and they're deed restricting. So these cases come up. It's not always cut and dry. That's what
You
I'm,
say 6 feet when possible? A 4 feet, you just put a French door in there, and you've got a private area.
well, that's why we say,
And
no doors are allowed.
Right, but
I know. Well, I agree. Any of these can be changed
it's hard
after
to
we
put a
leave.
French door on a 6-foot cased opening. I guess you can, yeah, you can, yeah.
You can put them on anything, really, so.
I have a question. I was just wondering, what are we trying to control here? Are we looking for the bigger houses? Are we trying to control that? Are we trying to control rentals, water usage? With the bedroom definition, it seems that if we have bonus rooms that have a full bath attached, then that bonus room could turn into a bedroom that we may not know about. But if we limit the bonus rooms to a half bath, then it stands more of a chance, I think, of being a bonus room. So it's like, what are we trying to control? The size of the bedrooms, or against larger houses that can have many, many rentals, or what, just,
I mean, the problem is we can't really control all those things with Title V. I mean, in some ways, we are trying to control some of those things, but we really have to work with a set definition. Sometimes we're just trying to control the size of the septic system based on the number of rooms in the house.
could we do anything with permitting bathrooms? That if it's a bonus room, it gets a half bath? We can't do that?
The bath can be down the hall from the bedroom. It doesn't have to be, what we're trying to do is control the number of people living in the house to equal what the septic system can accommodate.
Exactly.
And the number of people living in the house isn't determined by how many bathrooms there are. I mean, you could have a 5-bedroom house with 1.5 baths. It's
But we've been,
the number of bedrooms.
we've been seeing a lot of bonus rooms that want a full bath attached to it. And that sort of says to me that that could become a bedroom at some point.
Absolutely.
And so if there's any way we could limit, bonus rooms get a half bath, and if there are other full baths, which of course there will be in the home, they can walk to those and use those.
But it can't be a bedroom if it doesn't have privacy, whether it has a bathroom or not. If it's wide open to the next room, then it's not going to be usable as, I mean, people could put
People-
a futon in there and sleep people in
Right,
a
and-
bonus room. There's nothing you can do about that.
And
Yeah,
people,
it
yeah,
has-
like, I know that sometimes with the loft areas, they just put a folding door across or something like this, and I've seen that happen too. Unfortunately, we don't have any way to go back and enforce what we permitted, and I know that would take even more people power, and that's really hard to do, but I was just had that question. and
It
wanted to
basically
throw it
has,
out to the board.
it really has nothing to do with bedrooms or bathrooms per se. I mean, you could have a full bathroom on every room in a house. The critical thing is, do those rooms meet the requisite privacy to be counted as a bedroom? All right, you could have a full bathroom in a music room, you could have a full bathroom in a theater, all right? But would they meet the requisite privacy requirements to be counted as a bedroom? That's what the important question
And
is.
if they do, then would we still permit that full bath? Like a
Yeah,
bonus
because it
room?
really, the bathroom in and of itself means nothing. We don't regulate by bathrooms. We regulate by bedrooms. So the question becomes, does that room meet the definition or the criteria to be counted as a bedroom or not? And that's what the board's been kind of wrestling with some of these bonus rooms and rooms over garage, is when you look at it, it could meet the definition of a bedroom. Doesn't matter whether it has a bathroom or not, doesn't need a closet, does it have the requisite privacy? That's what's critical. Now, the state has said certain rooms, just by the state's definition, bathrooms, kitchens, dining rooms, they don't count as bedrooms, period, under state regulation, because the state says, every house has a kitchen and a dining room or whatever. But it's these bonus rooms and the theater rooms and the music rooms and those kinds of things. And from my perspective, do they have the requisite privacy to be counted as a bedroom? And if they do, then we count them as a bedroom, whether or not it has a bathroom attached to it or not. Because as, Edward said, you can have the bathroom down the hall. But if that room has the requisite privacy, then we need to count it as a bedroom, and that needs to be factored into the size of the septic system.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yes, thank you for the explanation.
So this issue of new construction versus existing dwellings. So if it's an existing dwelling and they're finishing off the upstairs floor or putting an attachment to the building, so part of it is new, wouldn't we want to hold them to the new construction guideline? So it's an existing dwelling, but their renovation is new, so they could construct it to our newer guidelines. It would only be going back to the existing house that has a 4-foot casing where we'd sort of grandfather and say, well, we're not going to require it there. We're not going to require them to go back to the existing house and renovate these old casings. That's my idea of,
Yeah, I mean,
because it's a big loophole if it's a new addition on an existing house. They would have to hold to our current, I think we would try to have them hold to our current rule,
I
6-foot
think-
casing.
Yeah, I think the easy way to address that
Yeah.
would simply say, for the purpose of this regulation, a room with a 6-foot minimum cased opening, new construction or renovation,
That's exactly what I was going to say.
all right, or a 4-foot cased opening, and I suggest you put cased opening in there.
Yeah.
And then who decides? And Judy decides whether the renovation is of a nature that covers the whole house or covers
But I guess it'd always be kind of a gray area. It'd be-
a little bit,
I mean, so
yeah.
that it's, I don't think we can write in exactly the
Yeah.
whole thing, so there'd be some discretion.
Significant
There are some, obviously, that are whole new,
I mean, and then,
Addition.
you know, I put 4 foot, it could be 5 foot if you wanted it, but,
well, I'll just say, the 6 foot was, some of the towns have 6 foot, Cape Towns, some have 5. I mean, 6 foot is obviously much more private, goes a lot farther to making it not be a bedroom.
Right.
On the other hand, it's a pretty big opening. I mean, I would, you know, other towns do 6 feet, and we're pretty concerned about the number of extra rooms, so I would think we might think about keeping that 6 foot archway, in my own opinion. I had just one other thing. What's the regulation with open to a stairway? If a stairway goes into a room, it's not private and it.
Not a bedroom.
Not a bedroom. So if you're renovating your upstairs and you're putting one bedroom up there, and there's one staircase going up there, then that's not a bedroom. It seems like a bit of a loophole. We had the case last week with the freestanding garage, the room above with a full bath, and the staircase. So that staircase, well, it went into the garage, but it's that loophole of, does that make it not a bedroom? Because it's sort of a big,
no,
There's going to be a door at the top of that staircase.
Right.
Above the garage.
the way when I have builders come to finish a room over a garage, they call them, you know, bonus rooms. I try and get them to have an open staircase with a railing at the bottom with a, you know, a landing kind of thing. And then at the top, either half wall or a rail.
If
No-
they indeed do not want it to be counted as a bedroom.
Right, so they have to try and keep that, from the top, you can like basically look down the stairs and see, to, you know,
Right. See the-
have it so that they can't put a door on it, because it's an open railing or a half wall at the top and a railing at the
but
bottom.
sometimes, for our purposes, we look at that room over the garage and say, well, that's going to be used as a bedroom with a full bath, and this stairway,
That one
whether
was
it's there or
different
not, it's
because
still going to be
it,
used as a bedroom, so,
that one was different because it came into the garage directly.
Yeah.
And that was a kind of a different thing, because it entered, you had to enter into the garage to get into that bedroom.
so I guess my question is, when you talk about the garages,
Man.
freestanding garages have heat in a bathroom, provides privacy. So implied in provides privacy, does that mean if a staircase, if a stairway empties into the room, it's not private? Is that a given by the rules?
I think the key word is an open stairway. It says open stairway. So if you have an enclosed stairway with a door at the bottom of the stairs, that's privacy. If there's,
Or if there's a door at the top of the
If the
stairs.
stairs are wide open and you can walk from the downstairs room up into the bedroom without ever passing through a door, then that's an open stairway, and then you don't have privacy in that bedroom.
Right. But my point is, that's kind of like a loophole, because then they just, you know, it is private and it can be used as a bedroom, but there's no door there.
Right.
So,
Well, you know, that's like a 6-foot opening. You can use it as a bedroom if you don't care about whether you have any privacy.
And then the other thing is that oftentimes I'll get detached garages where people they want to have an office or a studio or something over the garage in their backyard, and they put a bathroom in it. So if it doesn't have a bathroom in it, I don't usually count it as a bedroom because it's detached from the house, and
Yeah.
they're not going to rent it out or put it on Airbnb because there's no bathroom. But if it's got a full bath or a bathroom in it, then it can really be used as a bedroom. I mean, again, we don't count bathrooms, but, logically, you kind of have to look at that
so if
kind
there's a
of
door,
stuff.
so if it's a staircase that comes down the outside and there's a door, then that's private.
Right, and there's,
So the one we saw last week, the staircase came down to the garage and there was no door, so that was not private.
that
yes.
one entered into the garage, so.
Okay.
Aye.
I know, but one other, just finish up a couple quick. The bonus room with walls open to below, so I think usually they put some kind of a measurement of how high the wall has to be, or how big, how, it just says walls open to below. I think sometimes there's a measurement in there.
4-foot wall, suppose it's 5.5-foot wall,
Usually, by that I mean,
half wall.
there's either a half wall or a railing in a loft.
Well,
I mean, I think this definition, it's hard to come up with something that's going to catch every circumstance.
So
I
is
think
it
this definitely kind
the
of,
same process here? This has to be publicized and have a public hearing and all that?
yeah.
Yes, because these are changes to your existing regulations, so they have to go through a public hearing process.
Can they be done the same day?
Yes.
Back on the 4 versus 6 foot, where'd the 4 come from? Have we ever used 4 feet wide?
Like I said, I've used it when I've been looking at building plans,
You have.
yeah.
So I know, remember, we've talked about 5 foot as something that we wanted
Well,
or aspired to.
Sometimes
no,
you,
it used to be, because I would ask Judy, and it would be 4 or 5 feet cased
Yeah.
opening. 4 or 5, and it wasn't firm. It
right.
wasn't firm.
Right.
So we're trying to make it firm, and then we're upping the ante and saying 6 feet, which is,
sometimes you
one
have a
more.
house that's very small, like.
They can always come and
Like the
ask for
houses,
variance if they
the
want.
Campanelli slab houses on Shane Drive up,
Yeah.
they might want to add a room, but they don't have a lot of space, or they're taking a bedroom and they're going to add an addition with a big master, and they want to get rid of one room, and they might only have enough space to really widen something out to 4 feet. So I've let things like that go, to 4 feet, because that's not a standard door size. And then I usually ask them to deed restrict the house to the number of bedrooms that they have.
So do we want to have another version of this, a final version prepared, or are we able,
Well, I think the only change we have so far was Bob's suggestion to
in the first paragraph?
this isolated, reword it to say, to put the privacy language in. That's the only change we've really made, I think.
We put in the word renovation.
We've
Right.
added the words or
Then-
renovation.
Renovation, okay,
And
right,
we've
yeah.
added the
So those
Cased
those two
opening,
things.
that's what I've added. So if it would say, for the purpose of this regulation, a room with a 6-foot minimum cased opening for new construction or renovation, or a 4-foot for existing dwellings that open directly into another habitable room or hallway that leads to a habitable room is,
So what would the process be for
Not
you?
considered.
does not provide the necessary privacy.
Not considered as providing,
Is not considered as providing.
maybe, I don't know.
Yep.
Privacy. So there's three or four edits in that first sentence.
So what's the process, to rewrite this and let us all look at it again next
We
week?
can do that, sure. I can clean it
Yeah.
up, and you guys can think about it some more, and we can talk about it at
You want it one
next
more
week's
time.
meeting.
Yeah, and then I would just say to Carol's point there, you sent out the information about how other towns on the Cape, there was a handful, and I don't think bathrooms were in any of those regulations, so that's just not a criteria that's used.
Yep.
I know, we were talking about, including me, that if it looked like a duck and it quacked like a duck, it's probably a duck. I think Dick said that initially.
Yeah.
That's where we began to question, well, maybe if we really wanted to not be a bedroom, we shouldn't be having full baths adjacent to suspicious rooms,
I remember that.
right? And so, we've danced around this, and we've heard a lot of different arguments, so we could do whatever we want, but that's kind of what we were discussing at one point.
Right, but we ended up saying, regardless of what the bathroom is, if they put
Yes.
in a big enough opening, it's not a bedroom.
Because
it doesn't provide privacy.
Okay.
I mean, we have basements that are completely below grade with no real legal egress that have full bathrooms in them. I get them all the time.
Right.
And they just can't be counted as a bedroom because they're,
So if you
Not.
rewrite this and it goes on our agenda next week, is it the kind of thing that you make open to the public? That there may be architects, engineers, people who are interested in what we're writing here, or not?
we will have to have a public hearing.
A public hearing, okay.
But we wouldn't do that next week. This would
Okay,
just,
public hearing,
next
I
week
got it.
would just be the kind of
More-
look at it again. I would like to, before
I
we
mean,
move
you-
on, though, is look
You
at
can
the,
also get public comments next week, just like you could get public comments today.
Right, and they
Because
would-
if it's on your agenda,
So
and
they
it's
would-
part of the packet, they could come and comment next
Right.
week to the hearing.
Okay.
To the meeting. They also would be able to come during the public hearing and formally comment
Right.
as well.
every meeting is open to the public. But we do have to have an advertised public hearing when we change a regulation.
Right. Okay.
On the minimum requirements for the subsurface disposal of sanitary sewage, I just quickly, if you want to take a look at that, and we can, I changed the definition of a bedroom on page 2 and 3, and I will make the same changes in that section that we discussed today. There was a change in section 2.2 under septic handler permit. The last sentence, it says septic collection rules and regulations established by the WPC Board dated October 1st, 1981. I can't find that. I have no idea what that is. So I was just going to take that out.
Delete it if you can't find it.
I tried to find what that they're referring to. And then under 2.3, we have permits so granted and any variances local approval allowed therein shall expire 3 years. I changed it from 1 to 3. That's more in line with Title V, and it's kind of basically what we do anyways.
Okay.
I just think that makes it more in line with Title V. And then on 2.8 is the sewage disposal system in a floodplain zone. You can see what I took out, and I added this language after some discussions with our Coastal Resources Director and Thad Eldridge, who does a lot of mapping and such in town. Land subject to coastal storm flowage as delineated on the FEMA and NFIP firm maps, National Flood Insurance Program, flood insurance rate maps, et cetera, shall be so located that the bottom of the leaching portion of the system is at a minimum elevation of 8 NAVD 88 or 5 feet above adjustable seasonal high groundwater, whichever is higher. And in no case shall a variance be granted which would allow the elevation of the finished grade over the system to be less than 1 foot above the base flood elevation. That coincides with our flood mapping. And that, again, is only for new construction. It's
Okay.
not for repairs. So basically, it's taking a system, that's maybe now sitting in the flood zone and raising it up to 5 feet above that.
Okay.
So I think that's easier to understand than the way it was worded before. And let's see, liquid wastewater,
There's something on page 9.
yeah, that's what I'm looking at. We used to have a requirement for humus and composting toilets that they have an IA system with them. I don't personally think that that's necessary, because unless, that was put in years ago, before we had really done a lot of IA systems, but do you see that, Bob?
Yeah, I'm reading it.
Because really, the only liquid that's coming out of these composting toilets is gray water. And there really is nothing to feed an IA system.
You mean gray water, meaning,
Sink waste,
okay,
sink.
hand wash.
Dish, laundry, hand washing, yeah.
Okay.
if you have a composting toilet, there's very little liquid that comes out of them. So to have somebody have to put in a whole
Do we have
IAC.
any of those in residential areas?
We do have a few, yes.
Yeah?
Yep.
I was talking to a gentleman a couple of weeks ago who's got one who can't wait to get rid of it. I said, how soon am I going to get to it?
Didn't they build one up at the National Seashore, and they never used it?
They never opened
They had
it.
one up there. We've had a composting toilet on the bike trail for 15 years now. It works great.
Yeah.
It's great for applications like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily want one in a full-time residential house.
Gotcha.
If you're living out on North Beach, okay, because you don't have any other
Right.
option.
Right.
But, we have a couple of them that are in town, in Chatham, because the board years ago required them. And most homeowners are like, I can't wait to get rid of this thing.
Okay.
For a house like that, where you may have kids and all, it just doesn't work.
They're yeah. Rough, but. So those are my suggested changes.
I just had one question, Judy, back on page 3, under 1.7 unfinished. It currently says no insulation and no finished walls. And then you've got in parentheses, no drywall, not painted, untreated surfaces.
That's what
Doesn't-
for the definition of unfinished, no insulation and no finished walls. Yeah, that's poorly worded, that whole definition.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, that part you added. Well, anyway, we could talk about that offline.
Yeah, I can
and if-
clarify that.
Yeah.
I
We'll
mean,
either-
basically, I'm saying a place that has no drywall or insulation or is not painted.
Right.
Well, it could have drywall and not be painted, but,
Well, then it wouldn't be unfinished, because
right.
to be unfinished, it has to have no finished walls, and no finished walls could be simply, can't have drywall.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, no
All right,
drywall,
well,
period.
we'll clean that up and,
Okay.
before we get it back to you for next week.
So then the board is going to review another edit or rework of this at the next meeting.
Sure, yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you have any thoughts in the meantime, you can let me know. So we'll make those changes, and hopefully then we can put all of these regulations possibly on our May 2nd
Together.
meeting.
All at once.
Yeah.
Why not? All right, item 5, update discussion regarding John McGrath's property at 32 Mill Hill Road.
The only update I have for you is today's Monday, I talked to the low bidder on Friday, because I'm still waiting for the signed contract back from them. They said it was undergoing their final review, and we should have it any day, so that was Friday, so I'm still waiting.
Any day.
Any day.
Any day.
And the select board is going to put on the
Select
agenda
Board
the
tomorrow
traffic.
night has on their agenda the Traffic Study Committee's recommendation to post that area that you recommended. Your recommendations to post that area is no parking and also the guardrail. So that is on the board's agenda for discussion tomorrow night.
Okay, and then who would present that to the board? Or is that how it
It'll be
works?
coming from the Traffic Safety Committee. It's their recommendation.
Yeah,
They basically took what you guys had suggested. They're now recommending it
right.
officially to the board. And John, if you're available, I would certainly listen in case, you get an opportunity to weigh in and say the Board of Health made this recommendation and strongly supports it or whatever.
And you'll be there, you're always there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Right.
Board of Selectmen.
Because I
meeting.
think that,
I'm always there.
with the arrival of that old RV, that's sort of a new level of parking.
Yep, as soon as I saw that, I was.
Doesn't look operable.
As soon as I saw that, I was in contact with the police department. I got an email back from Lieutenant Goddard right away. I thought it would just be a simple one sentence. It was about 4 paragraphs long, giving me the whole history of that RV. It has a long, convoluted history as to how it ended up there.
The police know about it.
The police are well aware of it, yes, and they are, yes. There's some question as to, anyway, I won't go into all the details, but they are aware of it, yes.
What's the
At
date
one-
of the
oh.
Board of Selectmen meeting?
Tomorrow night,
Tomorrow.
tomorrow night.
At one point, I think we had suggested a no dumping sign because they were worried that once everything was cleaned up, there would be more dumping. Is that possible to throw that into the mix as well? or-
I'm trying to remember if that may already be in there.
Oh, good, okay. Excellent.
So if you look today, there's the road surface, and then there's about a 2-foot rise. The ground goes up. And then right at the top of that, there's a whole lot of trash that's sort of been pushed back, maybe 4 feet from the paved surface.
At
But
John
that's
McGrath's?
still- Yeah. You know,
Because at his property, it's either flat or it drops down.
doesn't it go up a little bit from the, no? Where all the stuff has been sort of pushed back, there's a whole lot of metal and trash.
Yep.
A lot of that's still on town property, is that right?
If it's,
Yeah.
you can see where the stakes are. The stakes are about 10 to 12 feet in from the edge of the pavement, so if
Okay.
the material is still in front of those stakes,
Right.
it's on town property.
So most of that material is still on
There
town
is still,
property.
last time I was out there at the end of last week, there was still a significant amount of material on town property, yes.
And the stakes were still in
The
place?
stakes were still in place.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
Remember, we also had spikes put in the road, so if the stakes disappear, it's a simple measurement to get back to where the edge is.
I had forgotten that.
Yes.
Good.
We had stakes put in the road.
Bob, who owns the property right across the street?
That is the Bassett property.
You own right across?
Well, why don't you come up to the microphone, sir? Make sure the green light is, I think,
Yeah, it's on.
is the green light on?
Good
Okay.
afternoon. Yeah, I have a few questions.
Give us your name, please.
My name is Matt Linnell. I own 67 Mill Hill Road and 101 Mill Hill Road. I've lived up there for 31 years. I presently have the place where the horses are, and we've gone through all the boards, and they're legal and everything. I had to do that, but apparently Mr. McGrath doesn't have to do anything. But anyway, my comment is, a lot of this stuff is starting to move to Oyster River on his other property in the trailers. So I would like to know when, hopefully we can get this guardrail in the, and another thing was a guy was dumping stuff there, yesterday as I was out front, at my, and just dumping stuff there. So that may be an option, is the no dumping sign. I mean, it's a serious problem up there. And, I just feel like I live in the wrong zip code or something. If this was on Shore Road, it would have been gone. This RV would have been gone. Any of this stuff would have been gone, but it just stays, and it stays. And we go through all this, and we go through this. They wanted no parking on Barcliff. They got it. Do we get any relief up there? No. This RV was the last straw for me. I don't really complain about people's stuff. I like to see it gone, obviously, but you gotta start having some empathy for the people up there. That RV shouldn't be there. It's in front of a fire hydrant. I called Mr. Goddard, not my wife called Mr. Goddard up, and he said that no towing the reason why it's there is because nobody wants to tow it because they know they're not gonna get paid. But that's not my problem. I mean, that thing is technically on town property if you go for the 10-foot setback, off the road. So I just have several questions like that. Why does this keep going on and on and on, I mean, I'm thinking about hiring an attorney myself and just, seeing what I could do with it, because it's getting to a point where I can't get by at times. It's dangerous up there with the trucks. It's a very busy area. That should be open, and it's not. It's very frustrating. And that's all I got to say about it. But I would just like to know, is this ever going to get resolved, or are you guys just too afraid of him to do anything? Right?
Yeah,
I mean, if just put yourself in my place. If you live, would you put up with that?
do you live in the property that has the new split rail fence?
Yes, I put the fencing in.
Okay, yeah. Well, I would say that,
And I do a good job keeping the property up. It's not like it's.
absolutely. I would say that, to my recollection, it was last June that the Board of Health took it on as as our problem to try and resolve
Yeah.
for the town. For 4 or 5 years before that, it was someplace else.
Yeah.
So I think we've been working about as hard as we can, meeting by meeting, and it's a process, and I think what Bob said is that we're down, when this contract is signed, it'll be very short, I think within a couple of weeks or something, that this roadway will be cleaned up. So we're
I understand.
since June,
I just-
we're at the very end now, so we've been.
I really understand. I
And would
understand, but
say
I,
for-
but
I'd say
my,
for myself that the frustration that you express, I have too, and we're just working through the process as best we can.
but this has been like this
And
for
Bob-
30 years.
Bob has been
so-
doing most of the work here.
And the other thing is, I want to know why so you're telling me I can run a junk business in my yard without a permit, without anything? And it seems like that's what's been going on here for 30 years. I've lived up there for 31 years, so I'm quite familiar with Mr. McGrath. And, they across the street's got issues too, so, I don't know what the answer is. I've got one that's collecting as much lumber as he can, and I got one that's collecting as much steel as he can.
Yeah, it was a process to decide that treating the McGrath property as a nuisance, it's a legal thing, as opposed to an illegal junkyard was the best way to go for us to get the job done. And so that's what we've been doing, basically.
I just
So
feel
that's-
like it just keeps going around and around
Yeah.
and around. I've
Well,
been
there's
very
been-
patient because I've been living with it for a long time.
There's been more progress in the last year
Yeah,
than there
because we've
has in
been-
the last 29 years, so you have to give us that.
So I would,
I get it.
I just asked Bob, so when they sign the contract, how long approximately before they would actually clean the roadway up?
They have, under the contract, they have 21 days from the notice to proceed. So
3
once
weeks
we
in.
get the contract and their insurance papers, we'll issue a notice to proceed, and then they have 21 days to do the cleanup. And they have to give us a week's notice before they mobilize to the site, so we can notify the property owner that, they're going to be there on such and such a day, because we're required to give him notice under state law.
Yeah.
that-
Any idea?
Yeah, so I think we're in the final stretch in terms of the roadway cleanup.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully when I get back, I'm heading down to work down in New Jersey for a little while because I work on fishing boats. But and the other problem I have is why I built a house a few years ago. I just don't understand why it never got finished. Like, isn't there something for an occupancy permit? You need a driveway and you need some kind of. It's not buried. It's half buried. It's just crazy to me. But I guess this was a previous board's problem.
Yeah, that's a building department issue.
Why, you see what it is. When I built a house, I had to have a driveway, I had to have little
Yeah.
shrubs here, I had to have it looking kind of like something,
I don't know the history of the construction of that house. I think it started in the 80s, and,
It was built around 83, I think.
yeah, and I don't know why it was never finished.
But that's another I don't know who, that may be another issue coming up because I'm really starting to get a little fired up about it, so I may start with that
Bob,
next.
any idea from you on how long it will take this contractor to accomplish the work once they're there and they start?
They were not only the lowest bidder, but I think their time frame for cleaning it up was 3 days.
Okay.
It was very, very short compared to, the
So
other
they're gonna
contractors,
bring-
like a week time frame.
They're going to bring a lot of
Yeah,
equipment
They have
and,
the resources to get in there and get it done and get out.
okay.
Yes.
And even the trailer that's there,
Or the
You
RV,
mean
are
the
they
RV?
gonna?
the RV.
They can bring in a
RV.
tow truck to, because if that's parked in front of a
The RV
fire
wasn't
hydrant.
there when we first bid the project, so it'll be, if it's still there when they're there, it'll be up to them to figure out how they're gonna get it out of there.
Okay.
Because if it's in front of a fire hydrant, we have laws in this town that
That's why
should
when
be
I
removed,
first
and the
saw it.
town should remove it.
When I first saw it, I immediately reached out to the police department,
Yes.
so.
Maybe they can have it towed.
Well, they just,
At least it's not there.
They
It's
were-
somewhere, but it's not there.
I'll tow it
The
somewhere.
reason why it ended up there was because no towing company would tow it
Touch
from
it.
where it was previously because they were, A, afraid it would fall apart, and B, afraid they'd get stuck with it
It wasn't driven there, was it?
I don't know how it got there.
Oh, it
to be
got
honest
towed
with
there.
Towed?
I knew it towed. I'm not gonna say it towed it, but I know how it got there.
So anyway, like I say, I expected a one-sentence response from the police department saying, thank you very much for bringing it to our attention. I got about a 4-paragraph email back saying, here's the whole history of this thing.
Wow.
That they've been dealing with. So, yeah, it's got a convoluted story behind how it ended up there.
Will the police be there at the time of the cleanup to help make decisions about that stuff? The trucks,
There will be,
licensed,
Security.
unlicensed?
there will be, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Now, what's gonna happen with the rest of the stuff, the stuff that's on the property itself? It's-
Once the road right-of-way is cleaned up, then the Board of Health will make a determination as to whether or not there will be further cleanup on the property itself. And as I'm sure, well, I know the board knows, but we have a proposed article at town meeting to provide you a funding source to clean up situations like this on private property. For the road layout, we've identified a town funding source because that is the town property, if you will. Once we get onto private property, the option is to clean it up and then lien the property. But obviously, you need a funding source to be able to start that process. So we do have the article going before town meeting to fund what do they call it? A Board of Health nuisance
Nuisance
remediation
abatement,
fund,
yeah,
I think, is
mediation.
what we called it, for want of a better term.
So if that's approved at town meeting, then how long will it take to go into effect to get the monies to clean
The
up the
money
rest
would
of the
become
property?
available July, I'm trying to remember, if we did this out of free
Fiscal
cash,
year?
which means it's available immediately. Normally, it would be July 1st, the start of the new
Okay,
fiscal
so
year.
that's soon.
Yeah, and then the board, like I say, would have to decide whether or not you want to have a cleanup on the private property itself. And to what extent and, whatnot. And you've talked in the past about having a site visit there to look, walk the site and whatnot.
Okay.
Judy?
Bob, I had a call, and I don't think it was you, Matt, but somebody called a neighbor and said that they are not only moving the stuff down to the boatyard, but also moving a lot of stuff into the right-of-way down to the pond. And
Yeah, they're moving stuff all
and
over
it's
the place,
blocking
so.
that, and he wanted to know, I said, that seems like a civil issue. He's like, we can't get our boat down to the pond because
Yeah,
it's all blocked.
I had a call from an abutter a couple of years ago, probably 2 years ago during the pandemic, just before the pandemic, about the right-of-way, that even then, there was material in the right-of-way down to the pond. But that is a civil matter.
Yeah, I wouldn't have anything to
Because
do
I
with you guys.
told him, I said, your only recourse, if you have deeded access to the pond and he's blocking that, you're basically, your resolution is to sue Mr. McGrath to
That's what I
restore
told
your
him.
easement rights. That's
Okay.
not something for the town because it's private.
Okay,
It's
that's
private
interesting.
property and a private easement.
And that's the way that works in any subdivision, in
Yep.
any kind of, okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll just keep tuned.
Thank you. Bob, number 6, Chatham water quality. Any update on that today?
No update beyond what we've talked about before. The engineering design continues. Sorry. The engineering design continues. We went before the planning board last Monday for 160 Mill Hill Road, which is the water treatment plant for wells 10 and 11, the 2 new wells there. It was an interesting discussion with the planning board. I think there were some topics brought up that are outside the purview of the planning board, potentially outside the scope of the project, so we're working through the planning board with those. They're back before the planning board, I think, next week. They went before the ZBA for that project. They got approval from the ZBA, so that hurdle's been cleared. And then the wells 5 and 8, which are the 2 wells that have the current contamination of PFAS. Hopefully, the board saw the latest updated spreadsheet that I sent out last week with the latest updates for that. That just it continues down the engineering permitting route. So
Okay.
hopefully, as we've said before, the The temporary vessels for wells 5 and 8 is supposed to be here this month. We're now into April, supposed to arrive in April. And they're moving ahead with the construction, the site preparation, so that when that vessel gets here, they can get it installed, get the granular activated carbon in, and get the temporary treatment online, so we can use those wells again this summer. You know, hopefully we don't have a drought like we did last year, but we don't know yet, so. So that's the latest update on that. It's all moving. We have regular meetings, but like everything
Okay.
else, it just takes time.
All right, item 7, COVID-19, Bob?
Okay, COVID-19, and I apologize, I forgot to bring down something I wanted to bring down regarding COVID. Our reported case counts in Chatham continue low for the week ending last Friday. So the week of the 3/26 through 4/1, we had 3 cases. And remember, these are only cases reported through the state. So if people are doing their own at-home testing with home test kits, we don't know about it. These are only ones, PCR tests that are reported through the state system. So, you know, we've seen a fairly dramatic drop-off from where we were in December and January and into February, when we were averaging, 45, 50 cases a week. Now we're down to 2 and 3. We've had 2 recent weeks where we had no reported cases, which is great. I will tell you though, because I monitor the wastewater data for both the MWRA and also Provincetown. They're one of the few towns on the Cape. They're the only town on the Cape that is monitoring wastewater. And the reason for that is, you might ask, well, why aren't we doing it? We have a wastewater system, but it doesn't cover the whole town. And so you get a very skewed sense of what may be going on unless your sewer system basically covers the entire community. So Provincetown, the only one that really has a sewer system that covers the whole community, and then the MWRA, which is Boston and all the surrounding suburbs. And I will tell you, there has been a fairly dramatic increase in Boston over the last 2-week periods. Case counts or COVID-19 coronavirus levels in sewage in Boston are going back up again. So, how high they go up and whether or not we're seeing another surge because of now the B2 variant, which is a dominant variant in the US, and especially dominant here in the Northeast, only time will tell. The case count, Provincetown looks like they're only doing testing once a month. And their levels did go up between the February data and the March data. So they're also seeing an increase in wastewater, which you'd expect. Other than that, the only other news is FDA and CDC both cleared second booster shots for individuals 50 years of age and older last week. Take that news. If you're eligible, run out and get your booster shot, or wait and get your booster shot until we really see the case counts going up. It's supposed to be 4 months after your last shot. So if you had the first booster, you're supposed to wait 4 months before you get the second booster. But that is now available. There is plenty of vaccine availability. The county has actually scaled back on their vaccine clinics, but there is plenty of availability in the private sector at pharmacies and whatnot. I actually went on last week, and at Walgreens now you can basically get an appointment for the next day.
Okay.
Where before it might be a week or more out. Basically now you can get an appointment to get a COVID-19 shot the
What's
next day.
the expected lag time between a spike in the sampling of the public sewer systems and when you would expect cases? I mean, it's directly related, I would think,
A
right?
week to 2 weeks.
Yeah?
Yeah. And then deaths are about 2 to 3 weeks after case counts start going up, you start to see deaths
It's
go
almost
up.
like an early warning flag, right?
That's exactly why they're using the wastewater now, because it is definitely an early warning flag. A couple of weeks before you start seeing case counts go up in the community. Yeah, and it's going to be even more complicated now because so many people aren't getting tested where the tests are reported. So many people are doing their own home tests.
Yeah,
So it could be in the community much more widespread than case count data would lead you to believe.
Have they ever considered putting out a request for the public to call a particular number when they get a positive home test?
There's, not that I'm aware of, because, frankly, it might, I hate to use the word, but it would be a nightmare to manage.
Okay.
So that's why the states relied on PCR tests that are reported
Right.
I
right
believe
from the
they
laboratory.
do that.
You know.
They do that in Martha's Vineyard, I believe.
Yeah. Some communities do it where it's kind of a
They've asked for it.
controlled community.
Yeah.
I mean, we could certainly ask it, and if people do it, great. But again, are we getting 90%? Are we getting 10% or what?
Don't know.
So, the other thing that I wanted to touch base on, and I know Nicole Stern may be on this call as well. Last week, Ms. Stern brought to the Board of Selectmen that there is a antibody treatment available for people that can't get the COVID-19 vaccine because they've had an allergic reaction to it, or people that, are severely immunocompromised. There is basically a prophylactic out there that is available in Massachusetts and across the country. It is, and of course, I forgot my papers and I forgot the name of it.
AbuShield.
AbuShield. Thank you, Nicole. It is available. It is approved for use. That's Nicole Stern. She's on the call, if you will. But she wanted us to just highlight the fact that it is available, especially, for people that are immunocompromised or can't get the COVID-19 vaccines, that this is available. It is available on the Cape. It is by prescription only. So this is one of those things where you can't just run out and get it, but you should confer with your physician as to whether or not you are a good candidate for it.
Is this preventative or
This is
treatment?
preventative, so you can't get it if you have COVID-19 or you have been in contact with somebody who had COVID-19 within 10 days. After that, you could theoretically get it. You have to be 12 years of age or older. You have to weigh more than 88 pounds, to get it. It's a 2-shot dose. You get both shots at the same time. It is, as I said, it's an antibody treatment. It is about 70% effective. It's only been approved, it's only been out there for about 6 months, so they don't know yet, what the long-term, how long it lasts, if you will, because it's one of those newer things, but it is one of the few things that are available that are a preventative for certain people who, may be at higher risk.
Okay.
So I know.
Yeah, I mean, the issue would be if it's an antibody, then that antibody is going to get metabolized. And usually within 30 days, if you get an IV infusion or you get an infusion of an antibody, it's gone. So it would seem if you're going to use it, you would use it at a time when you think you're going to be at high risk of getting infected. If you get it today and then 3 months from now you go on vacation, you're not likely to still be protected. by
Yeah,
an
this is
antibody.
definitely one of those things where you need to confer with your physician as to whether or not, A, you're eligible, B, as you say, when you should take advantage of it.
Right.
Because it does require a prescription. Cape Cod Hospital is the only location on the Cape that provides it. Not every hospital has access to it or wants to have access to it or whatever. But Cape Cod Hospital does. So there is a mechanism. And I did send out the link to the board last week during the selectmen's meeting. There is information about it on the state's website. So, if people think they might be interested or they want to read about it a little bit, before they contact their own physician to delve further into it, I would suggest people go to the state's website, read the information on there, and then, follow up with their own physician as to whether or not it makes sense for them to get it. It's not a substitute for the vaccine. So, the recommendation is if you're eligible for the vaccine and you don't have any, adverse reactions to it, get the vaccine.
Right.
But if you're in that very limited group of people that may not be able to get the vaccine for whatever reason, this is potentially a good alternative for you to consider.
All right.
So
Thank
with
you.
that,
A
you
few
may-
things I'd like to add, Bob,
Go ahead.
if that's okay,
Abs-
Bob?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the chairman of the committee said, yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. It's available at most Boston hospitals, and they, of course, have a lot more than we have at Cape Cod Hospital because it's distributed by the size of the hospital. And Dr. Bob did a great job explaining it all. It also is, there are a lot of people, and I had brought this up a few months ago, there are a lot of people on the Cape who have had 2 shots and a booster and think that they're, home free and maybe are not taking as many precautions as they should. And there are other people that do have some issues being immune suppressant, and they've also taken 2 shots and a booster, but they're still afraid to go out or be around people. So there are a lot of people on the Cape like that, and they're not aware of it. And that's why I think this is such a great move forward as a preventative. I say it's a helper to a preventative because we don't really know that. But it basically gives you the antibodies that your body can't make for whatever reasons, because you're on medications, because as Dr. Bob said, you have allergies, or your body just isn't able to do it because you have autoimmune diseases and you've been on steroids for quite a long time, and you may appear to be a very healthy person, but you still can't mount the type of immunity that you need. Another area which I think is interesting too is if your doctor, and I think your doctor would have to call Cape Cod Hospital, make sure they had it, and then there's a form that he has to fill out to make sure that you're eligible. But if for some reason Cape Cod no longer has any at the moment, there is a way for your physician to refer to other hospitals. Boston has lots of them. And if you're a good candidate and you're willing to drive to Boston, they can get you an appointment. So I don't know if you have any questions on that. Again, people that are transplant recipients, cancer patients, they're specialists, they have or are on top of this, and they were the first in line to be able to get this drug. But as I said, there's also a lot of other people that may not even be aware that that they have no antibodies against COVID. I mean, you can have regular antibodies, but you need a certain kind of antibody that's going to protect you against COVID. I think that's all to add, other than I have done research on it, and I've heard that it can last anywhere from 6 months to a year. So who knows? It might only be 3 months. But I think that's no different than taking the COVID shot. And it's very, very highly recommended that you should have your COVID shots. And if that still doesn't give you what you need, then this is just a great alternative. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our last bit of business tonight is we need to accept the minutes from March 21st. So unless somebody has edits or corrections, can I get a motion to accept the minutes from March 21st?
I'll make that motion.
Carol, can I get a second? Second from Ron. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No votes against. Minutes are accepted. We're at the end of the meeting. Does anybody have anything last minute that they want to raise before we adjourn?
Did have one quick question for Bob. Was the gate ever installed at that fisherman's storage area? I thought it was April 1st.
Yes, the installation company doesn't do installations normally on Fridays. So I emailed them last week to say, all right, you don't do it on Fridays, when are you going to do it? They've just been trying to fit it in their schedule, and so
Any day
I'm
now.
hoping any day now,
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, it's like everything else. Everybody is so shorthanded with staff. Things that used to take a month to get done are taking 3 months. Things that used to take a week, take 3 weeks, unfortunately, and so, yeah.
I was
but-
in there yesterday, and there's nothing there, but there are some big dredges and big steel.
Big pieces of metal that get dragged.
Oyster dredges or whatever that, who's going to remove those things? You know, are those still functional?
Some of those are still functional, yeah,
And
they're
there's
just
that
stored.
gigantic portable pump,
Yep.
you know, on a trailer, and there's
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff.
I mean, they're stored there because-
If it costs $30,000 to clean up, you know, Mill Hill Road, it's going to cost $150,000 to clean up in there. There's just so much stuff.
Yeah, well, hopefully, a lot of that stuff gets removed between now and June 30th, when the area has to be cleaned up.
Right.
So, but yeah, some of the things like the dredges and all, those are still actively used, and they're stored there because that's what the area was designed for, was storage of fishing gear.
Wow.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Ed. Can I get a second, Ron? All in favor of adjourning tonight's meeting, say aye. 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 Any opposed? No. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.